Welcome to the Backstage Pass podcast. Today we are at the Sharjah Entrepreneurship Festival where the energy is absolutely insane. My name is Shamim Kasabawi and I'm the founder of Playdate, an app that helps you build your child's social circle. Today I'm joined by Raya Bidshari, founder of School of Humanity, and we've got a lot to talk about, Raya.
We do.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I am a mom. Everybody knows this, a mom and an entrepreneur. And the subject of education is one that's really close to my heart. I mean, we just put my first into nursery and it was like I was picking my husband all over again. That's how ridiculous my selection process was. I think I saw maybe like 10 different nurseries and I ended up selecting one. I think more than ever, when it comes to education, parents are becoming fussier and the generation now, the way we learn is completely different, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we're living through, I think, a era of transformation in the education system. And I think that's for the better. Hopefully, one of the things that you were fussy about is that your child is getting hands-on learning, that they're getting a personalized curriculum catered to their unique intelligences. So I hope that more parents are asking those questions because that will actually put more pressure on the education system to change.
Change. I like that word. So let me start off by you. How did you come up with the concept of your startup? Is it a startup? It's not even a startup anymore. Is it a startup?
I think we're a school and a startup at the same time, which is an interesting intersection.
Yeah. I want you to tell me all about it and how you came up with it because it's not exactly something that someone in their 20s is typically interested in.
Yeah, and I didn't grow up thinking I'd be interested in the education space. It actually really came out of my own pain with the traditional system. I was one of those learners who was really frustrated with the routine of the industrial era model of education, which is, memorize this textbook, take this paper-based, time-bound, standardized test, and then forget everything and do it all over again the next year. And for me, a lot of my pains with the education system were exaggerated or aggravated, rather, in when I was in university. I was actually doing a degree in neuroscience, and like many, I was fascinated by the idea of something, and then I worked in the space and realized what a big difference it is to study neuroscience versus actually do neuroscience.
Yeah.
Long story short, I pivoted in my last year of university to an education startup because I just felt like this was a pain point that I experienced and I wanted to do something about it.
Okay, so then you launched the School of Humanity, and how did you decide how did you structure it? I mean, a lot of founders out there, even ones who are interested in education, how do you go about launching something like that? I mean, I've seen and I've met a lot of founders in the tech startup space when it comes to education, but a school? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so why a school? So when my first company out of university wasn't a school. It was focused on the extracurricular space. And at first, that's kind of the angle I tried to tackle this problem of the education system from. And I worked on that for a few years, and it had meaningful successes and meaningful failures. But the thing that really frustrated me with trying to change the education system from within was that the system stayed the same, right? Like you can slap in an innovative extracurricular, but the core curriculum is still outdated. Or what most learners are still spending their time on is preparing for exams that are outdated.
Yeah.
So that was very frustrating. And in parallel, I saw that there are innovative models of schooling that are emerging around the world. Models that focus on projects, models that focus on an interdisciplinary curriculum, or giving every learner a personalized plan or development. And that was really exciting to me. And that felt like actual change because you were creating a new system that would be much better than the traditional system. So School of Humanity came from the place of taking some of these models or elements of these models, moving them online and opening them up to the world so that parents and learners around the world could access a model of education that took this approach at a fraction of the price.
Wow. Yeah. So then you came up with a concept, and then how did you make it different? Tell me a little bit more about School of Humanity and what ages you cater to and how somebody can sign up with you.
So we are an American online high school. We cater to learners ages 13 to 18, the last 4 years of high school typically. And the thing that makes us different is that at our school, you learn by having a positive impact on the world. So every term, our learners do these challenges such as future of the internet, future of food, energy, water security, designing space habitats, maintaining global peace. And the curriculum is centered around these real-world issues because they make them so much more inspiring and exciting for our learners. In addition to that, we put a significant emphasis on human flourishing and developing the social emotional intelligence and purpose and meaning in life. We also have no exams, so all of our assessments are project-based. Learners do projects. And there's also a lot of emphasis on real-world learning. So we do internships every term, mentorship from experts.
Wow.
So it's just a reimagination of what we're learning, why we're learning it, how we're learning it, in order to make the learning experience and outcomes much more relevant to today's world.
Wow. Right, that's amazing.
Thank
Seriously.
you.
I'm one of those people that, firstly, I want to tell you my experience with education so you can get a better understanding of why I'm so excited about this. I spent most of my life in New Zealand and my education and everything. And I did my first internship with a lawyer at the age of 14.
Very cool.
I know, I was dying to be a lawyer. It was like my thing. I mean, I talk a lot, as you can see. So it was just a matter of me getting the knowledge to be able to write these amazing scripts and make my clients win, right?
Yeah.
So I go into like my first day with her and she's like, hey, I need some filing done. And that's what I spent the whole week doing. Organizing the cupboards, organizing the drawers. I had to know my ABCs so I can like organize them, the files in order with the right, like alphabetical order. And this is the thing. I think people don't understand what an internship does for the younger generation. Like if for youth, if a 14-year-old comes in and they're coming in for an internship, give them real work. Don't make them file, So then fast forward, I'm in high school and I don't know what I'm going to do after school. But I've noticed one thing about myself. I talk a lot. So I used to always get kicked out of class. And then they launched this thing in our year 13. We have 13 years of school in New Zealand. And it was called Young Enterprise. And it's basically a business. So you get into groups from the first day, and then you decide who's doing what. I got marketing manager. God knows what that meant at the time.
Cool.
I was just like, what? But I talk a lot, right? So they're like, you can have that. Another girl, her parents were in finance. So they're like, you can be the finance manager. And another girl, she liked design. So we're like, you can be the design. And you know what? We actually built this business. And over that year, I realized that I loved marketing. I loved building brands and I loved speaking about them, which is how I ended up in PR, because I took that and I took my love for talking and gossiping and I just made them into a career. So then I realized that I learned by doing. And I was lucky that I realized that at a very early point of my life, at the age of 17 or 18. So I wanted to go to a school that ensured that I would learn by actually doing projects. And that's exactly what I did. I went to Auckland University of Technology. Their business school is very hands-on. Right. And I didn't miss one class. The whole 3.5 years I was there, I did double majors. And it was just such a great experience. I actually learned. So I came into the world and I was working at the same time in a PR firm. So by the time I actually started my career, I'd had like 4 years experience of PR. So tell me how you... Like the traditional system, do you see it changing for people like myself? I mean, shouldn't kids at the age of 12 or 13, shouldn't you be able to recognize how they're learning? And do you think that's the future?
Absolutely. I love the story you shared because that's the power of those real world experiences. It also shows you if you like something or not. And we ask kids to decide what they want to study for the career that they want before they've had any of those experiences. I think one thing I really strongly believe in is there isn't one size fit all, or there shouldn't be one size fit all in the education system. So School of Humanity, with its emphasis on challenge-based learning, project-based learning, is great for some learners, but there are also other really exciting models out there. So for example, there's the New View School in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where you learn through the architectural studio model. You use your hands a lot, so you build things. So I can imagine for some learners, that's like the perfect learning experience for them, right? You have there's a school in Netherlands called the Agora School, where there are no classrooms, no teachers, no curriculum. Every learner has a personalized curriculum. The school building is all open spaces, and the educators are coaches, so they're learning coaches. And for some learners, that's the perfect perfect model, right? So it's just about what I think we need all around the world is more options that are truly variety. Because I know a lot of places in the world seem like they have really diverse private schools, but actually a lot of the schools are actually really grounded in the same types of pedagogies.
Yeah, traditional.
They're traditional, and that works for some, fair enough. But what I'm
Does
saying...
it though? I don't know.
It does. I mean, look, depends what you're measuring, but some learners will go through the system, get their straight A's, go to the next stage, and they're fine, right? But for a majority, it doesn't work, and we have the data to see that it doesn't work for the
100%.
majority.
I mean, two of us
Yeah.
sitting here.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
already like, and then what I loved also about AUT, I'm really plugging them in here, but what I loved about AUT, which is the school I ended up going to, is the last 6 months, you had to do an internship.
Yeah.
And if I majored in marketing, international business, my international business degree made me, I had to either go study overseas for 6 months or work for 6 months. So for me, that was just such a great way to learn and to understand everything about the business world before I even stepped out of the school, you know. So I want to go back to the business side of things now that we know a little bit more about what you do every day and what your startup does. How did you fund this? As a founder, the struggle is real. We know this.
Yes.
How did you get investments, or how are you surviving? How did you start it?
So it started by bootstrapping. And what I mean by that is a combination of people somewhat volunteering their time for sweat equity, including myself, and early revenue through initial programs. We started with a summer school, for example, and a couple of a little bit of self-funding. So we started really by bootstrapping. I actually really valued the bootstrapping stage because it teaches you to be resourceful. And you
got fire on you, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
every dollar matters. And you really, if you can take that same resourcefulness later, even after you're funded, I think you can be a very capital efficient startup even as you're growing. But yeah, after about a year of traction with that bootstrap, we then managed to raise our seed round with EIM Global, which is a school group based out of Singapore that's pioneering sustainable education. And there was a lot of mission and vision alignment between what we were building and what EIM aspired to build in terms of the future of education. So they became our early investors in terms of the seed round.
So how did you get to them? Did you sort of source them and reach out to them, or did they find you?
Funnily enough, they heard me on a podcast.
Power of podcast, guys. Get onto podcast, please.
So someone from EIM, who is now also supporting us on our team, heard us on the podcast, heard the vision for School of Humanity, and they were actually working on a kind of similar project internally. And so they reached out, and initially it was just like conversations. We didn't think of them as a potential investor. It was more of like thought leadership. Let's kind of share visions and missions. And then over time, it became clear that they would make for an excellent strategic partner and investor in this.
I mean, I think based on my experience, that is the best way to go.
Yes.
Money is money, but money with brains is something else. It can just take you from 0 to 100 so quickly. Somebody who's got experience in your industry, who's already positioned really well, it just automatically pushes you.
Absolutely. And above all, they understand the problem, right?
Yeah.
When you have an investor or a partner who completely is aligned in terms of there's this issue, there's this pain point, and the mission and vision is aligned.
And the passion.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, just hearing you speak about it, you have so much passion for this. And obviously because of my problems, and I mean, I didn't do well at school, but then funny enough, I did really well at uni. So it's so nice to see that by the time that my kids get to high school, there is going to be options and variety, because the way that this generation is a generation of TikTok and YouTube and iPads. I mean, my daughter is 3 and she grabs the iPad and she's like, so you have to find a new way for them to learn. It's just...
Yeah, it's not just their preferences. They're entering a different workforce. They're entering, something like 65% of the jobs that middle school students today will be doing haven't been invented yet.
Wow.
They don't exist yet. This is according to the World Economic Forum. So they're entering a world of accelerating change, of uncertainty. The kinds of skills and mindsets they need to thrive are just very different than what their parents or grandparents needed. So the education system has to change to cater to that.
Wow. Very interesting. I'll be registering my child in 10 years
We'll
when she'll be
happily take
13.
them.
It's very kind of you. Appreciate that. So, so you were set up in the US?
Yes, we're an American online high school. We have a presence in UAE and Singapore as well.
Okay, fine. So parents in the UAE, how can they sort of reach out and get their kids registered? And what is what is the value of money? Like how much does it cost versus normal high schools?
So we're open to families all around the world.
Okay.
Currently in our high school, we have learners from 20 countries across 5 continents.
Wow.
Including in the UAE. So it's a very global community, which is part of the magic of the experience for learners. They make friends from all around the world. Here in Dubai, we even have a hub. We're partnered with Innovation, which is a community of amazing learners who also allow for us to have in-person experiences to supplement it. We have a sliding scale tuition, which means a number of seats in our cohorts always are on full aid or partial financial aid. So we're really committed to equity. But our baseline tuition is around $7,800 a year, which by UAE standards, it's very affordable private education.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. I once did PR for an F4 driver. I'm actually still handling his PR.
Yeah.
And he is also going through high school through a university that's in the US, an online one that basically it caters to athletes.
Amazing. Yeah.
To allow them to, do what they love, but also get through high school. So it's very flexible. So this is so interesting. So $7,500 per year.
Yes.
As opposed to.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the power of being online is the kinds of infrastructure costs that traditional schools will have don't apply to us. So we can invest all of the resources into amazing teaching and learning and experiences for our learners.
Okay, so parents, if you are looking for an online education, this is a great option. Question, Raya, is it like a 8 to 3 or is it at your own convenience you do the work?
Yes, so half of the learning is synchronous. We do workshops with the learners, one-on-one sessions, mentorship sessions. So it's really interactive. And these workshops, even though they're online, have games, activities, brainstorming.
We don't go back to high school.
We don't lecture at learners. And then the other half of the schedule is self-paced. That's more flexible. We also have 2 different time zones, and we're adding new time zones. So there's different timings available to families around the world as well.
This is so interesting. So one more entrepreneurship question.
Sure.
How are you raising awareness about this? How are people finding out? How are you giving, high school is even more important than nursery. You know what I mean? For a parent. So how do you convince parents of this? And then finally, after that, how did you manage to set up relationships with the university so then you're accredited?
Yes, so I'll start with the second part of the question. We actually are just completing our international accreditation, but we had completed it as a supplementary school with the Western Association of Schools and Colleges. So that has so far been a successful process for us. I'll say very rigorous. It's taken us 1.5 years of self-study visits and so on. We are partnering with universities around the world, which is really exciting. We love partnering with really progressive universities that take the same approach as your university did, as our high school is doing, so that our learners can go on to progressive project-based universities after they graduate as well.
So how do you, as an entrepreneur, and obviously it's a high school, right? So how do you build this brand? How are you making parents realize that this is a great option to look into?
It's a huge undertaking, and we have an amazing growth team and storytelling team that is really every day asking, how can we explain this to parents? Because it's different, right? It's a very different way of teaching and learning. How can we show how it works? How can we also build credibility as a new school, but also really helping change mindsets about education? For us to fulfill our mission, we really need to take an educational approach to our marketing, where we explain how project-based learning works, how interdisciplinary learning works, and so that families can start to visualize and understand what this could look like. Ultimately, we don't believe that we should have to try to convince anyone, in the sense that really we're looking for families that are already frustrated with the existing education system.
Yeah.
And they're already looking for something different. They just don't know if that something different exists yet.
So I'm sorry, Raya. I know I keep jumping between the entrepreneurship side of things and the actual school. But question, how are you with the funding situation now? Are you going for a round anytime soon? Who are you speaking to? How can people reach you?
Yes, we are going to be doing a fundraising round this year, so we've started to prepare for that. And, we as we've been growing in the high school, everything's been financially sustainable since our seed round, which has been really exciting. For anyone that wants to reach out, you can Google us School of Humanity, or for even parents that are interested, our website's softhumanity.com, and you can reach out to us through there.
So, I see my kids are not at high school yet, but I see my sister's kids when they're going to high school, and they're getting up early and they're moody and the drama of getting things ready, etc.
Yeah.
So, how can parents know if this is a great option for their child and to look into it, or they should stick to the traditional system?
So I would recommend two things. One is from really early on exposing your children to different ways of learning, whether it's through an after-school club, whether it's through just activities, or even bringing them to a festival like Sharjah Entrepreneurship Festival. So the more you enrich and expose, the more you'll see, okay, they love it when we go to an arts workshop, or they love it when we do this. And you start to see what their preferences are. Whereas if they haven't been exposed to enough things, you wouldn't know what you like or don't like. And one of my favorite frameworks as an educator that I recommend parents think about as well is this theory called the multiple intelligences theory from Howard Gardner. So he's an educational psychologist who basically talks about how there isn't one way to be intelligent. You have 8 or maybe 9 different kinds of intelligence, such as naturalistic intelligence, or intrapersonal, which is self-intelligence, interpersonal, which is social intelligence, or
That's
logical.
That's me right there, guys. I
was
can
just
make
about
friends
to
with
say-
a chair.
Yeah, exactly. Logical, mathematical. I recommend studying this framework and trying to observe in your children the kinds of intelligences that are their strengths or weaknesses. We all have a bit of everything, and it changes over time. But I think that will really help understand, okay, if my child is a kinesthetic intelligence, they want to be in a model where they can use their hands, they can build things. If they love nature, they want to be in somewhere like the Green School in Bali, where it's an outdoors education, right? So really trying to align the possible education model with your children's intelligence. Specific intelligence.
More work for you parents, guys. Look out for these things. Read up, please. Well, thank you so much, Raya. I think there's so much to see here today at the Sharjah Entrepreneurship Festival. So many panels. The energy downstairs is contagious. It's absolutely amazing. Anybody somebody's here. I've literally bumped into like 10 million people downstairs. It was so hard to run upstairs without like having to stop and have a conversation. I believe you're on a panel shortly.
I am, yes. This is one of my favorite festivals in the world. I think they do such an amazing job with the content, with the network, so I'm really excited.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. And hopefully you'll be hearing from me in about 10 years.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.